Hello everyone, this is Solaris290, and I'm here today to give you my review of Kingdom Chapter 561, entitled Impact of That Single Swing. Now apologies, because I know this is basically a week late. It's really inexcusable, but I've just had various stuff to deal with, and in part it could be said to be lack of motivation as well, but regardless, I'd figure that I'd do the review of this chapter anyway. Not only because my 12 subscribers deserve it, as that's what you subscribed to me for, but also because it was a fascinating chapter and one I definitely want to talk about a lot more. So the chapter itself can be divided up into three main sections. The first section is the aftermath of Shin's slaying of Gakuei. The second part deals with the reappearance of Houken, and the third part shifts back to Liolio, where Yotanwa and, more importantly, Heki are fighting against the Quanrong forces. So to start, we have a brief recap from last chapter, or more so it's providing us clarity with Gakuei's POV somewhat. Gakuei rushes at Shin, as Shin's troops warn him as he's still in this slumped state, and as Gakuei gets ready to kill him, we see that smile of Heki of his magnificent lips. Shin finally awakens and he slashes, and there's a lovely panel, this shot of literally the slash being reflected in Gakuei's bloodshot eye. That's just an amazing panel. It really shows the impact of Shin's slash of Gakuei's final moments. And with that we get this amazing panel of Gakuei's upper half literally flying up to the sky. His own spear falls out, his body, the lower half, is still on the horse somehow, is just spurting blood. And of course everyone at that moment is just shocked, both the Shin unit and Gakuei's personal troops. And as Gakuei's severed top half finally hits the ground, apparently his horns on his helmet were the first bit to hit. Nice little point and detail made there. Gakuei's troops, of course, mortified, they're angry, bewildered, and Shin's troops, by contrast, are absolutely also somewhat bewildered, but then amazed that they finally killed Gakuei. Shin finally did it. We have Kanto and the rookie troops, who are utterly worn out, but nonetheless filled with the surge of morale, of amazement and admiration for the Captain Shin for having slain Gakuei. And then we have Bihei, who is standing out by not actively celebrating, and as the others ask why he's not just celebrating, Bihei notes that of course he saw it, but then he tears up of how incredible it was, of how finally that was a blow, a strike, a slash worthy of a great general. And with Bihei, of course, he had been there during Orchid's death, he's been there since Shin started his career. Hell, he's known Shin literally from when Shin was a orphan in Johto village, this war orphan or domestic servant, slave, whatever you want to call his former status, when he was at his lowest point. And from that he's seen Shin rise so amazingly, so beautifully, to heights that he never would have dreamed of. And then we move to Gakuei, who also notes that while she can't see it directly, it's clear from the cheering in the distance that Shin clearly has slain Gakuei. That's what they can infer. And Ten similarly can understand from the cheering of what's occurred. And while Gakuei is somewhat, well, both of them are worn out, but with Gakuei you can see she's somewhat more smiling, whereas Ten's still, well, Ten is smiling, but it's more of a stressed smile. I mean, Ten's been so stressed this entire arc, and finally she's got something she can actually smile about. But of course, right as they're in the midst of celebrating, they don't even have the time, because at that point one of Ten's aides notes that the Chogalyu army is now ready to attack them, and Ten gets ready for their full-scale retreat. As she'd mentioned last chapter, Gakuei was going to act as the rearguard, and so that begins. And of course, moving back to the situation at hand with Shin and the Heshin unit, they note that it's still fairly realistic, as while the Chin soldiers were surged from morale, they then, snap back And at that moment they realise, well, they're still surrounded by a mass of Gakuei's own troops who, yes, they've lost their commander, but they're going to be absolutely apoplectically angry. And they figured, well, just as happened in Kingdom most times, when these personal troops lose their commander, they will throw themselves without any regard for their own lives, suicide attacks out of vengeance and anger. And the Heshin unit forces brace themselves for that. But that does not happen, in fact. Why is that? Because the Gakuei soldiers who'd lost their master to Shin, they couldn't move an inch. After having seen the swing of that glaive that killed Gakuei, they'd been instilled with a deep sense of fear. Literally, they're frozen. At that moment, Shin takes the opportunity to retreat, and it's a joyous one at that. And even though the Gakuei soldiers still are able to claim to kill Shin as he's running away, it means very little. They know just from that one attack that they wouldn't even be able to go near him without paying for their lives. And now the next part of the chapter, and this is the one where you know everyone's going to be talking about it. The narration notes that the impact of this swing of Gakuei's death was felt not only upon the immediate battlefield and by the other surrounding troops, but far off at some mountains located slightly off the Shukai plains. Mountains which seem familiar in the sense that they're familiar habitat for a certain character who's been conspicuously absent, despite the fact that this invasion of Zhao by Qin has occurred. And as the crows nest, we see a figure who's deep in the forest. He seems to be angry, almost tormented by something. And at that moment, he almost seems to visualize somehow in his head of what had happened, of Gakuei rushing at Shin, of Shin at that one instant channeling the soul, the power, the might of Orki and slaying him. And with that, we see Houken's bloodshot eyes, still tormented by Orki's ghost of the circumstances of his death. With that, Houken screams. The crows are shocked enough to fly up, and that shot of Houken's mouth is just exquisite. You know, the impact of the cries as his mouth opens. You can see the scar, his teeth bared. You know, just so greatly drawn the way his scream echoes of all that rage and, you know, all of the issues he has with Orki. It's clear that Houken still hasn't gotten over how Orki died. Even though he slew him, he still doesn't feel like it really was him. And in truth, it wasn't. You know, that was called Gika, that Zhao soldier shot Orki in the back. If not for that, would Houken have killed him? We can never know, really. What if? But yeah, I mean, Houken there is just, it's got really interesting implications about whether or not he'll reappear in the future. It's possible, but who knows at this point. And then finally, in the third part of the chapter, we shift back to Liolo. And we have Yotanwa. And we get a much needed recap of the various different battles Chanwa's troops were fighting against. Against the three brothers of the Quanwong King Rozo, Baggio was struggling against brother Gorba, but with Tajifu now joining him, their combination is enough to put the Quanwong under Gorba on the back foot. From the defensive, they're now on a major offensive. And as for the Figaro army led by Danto, the brother there talk is somewhat bewildered or just rather confused by what the Figaro King Danto is doing, if only because, despite the fact that many of his own troops are dying in the process, he's relentlessly cutting through the Quanwong troops in order to get to where Talk is. And Danto is virtually just uncaring of his own troops dying. Ultimately, he's just going to kill Talk at any cost. He really, really wants to get into Yotanwa's bed, doesn't he? And then finally we have the Heki army on the right. And it's funny that even Yotanwa's own, honor guard here are just as shocked as I guess we would be when we find this out. The Heki army is in fact the one who's made the most progress, pushing back the enemy the most out of the respective three armies. And this panel of Heki here just swinging his glaive, sweating, scarred, covered in blood, but doing his job for once, Heki. Oh. And Heki has now caught sight of where Bunen, his personal enemy, is. And he notes that he's pretty optimistic they have enough fighting strength left to spare, unlike Danto, who's sacrificed most of his troops. in order to get to where the HQ is. He now rallies his troops to bring down Bunen in a single thrust. And Bunen here, he seems maybe confused like Torque is, but nonetheless, he sees Heki coming towards him and simply notes that he's an idiot. And that's not an ominous sign if I ever saw one. Why would Bunen be calling Heki an idiot? Well, most likely, as Katari had noted a couple chapters back, he inferred that Bunen was someone who was hiding his true strength. He was the most strategic out of them. And that seems likely. I mean, Bunen wouldn't just stand there doing nothing as Heki's troops ploughed through his own. And ultimately we know that Heki is somewhat of a target, a magnet for being baited, misdirected, misled. But honestly, just seeing this Heki, this chapter, doing so well, it really does warm one's heart, Even if Heki, of all people, can do something right for once. So yeah, as I said earlier, apologies for having such a late review, but there's so much to talk about this chapter, and it was an amazing one at that. So much development for Shin, teasing whether Houken's going to reappear, and actually getting the recap of Yotanwa's battlefield, which honestly I was feeling a bit like, was Hara going to forget about it, or how long was it going to take to move back to there? But I'm really glad we got that clarification of how Heki and Yotanwa are doing. Hopefully the next chapter, a couple of chapters, will focus solely on Yotanwa and Heki, because I really want to see where their one leads, because in a sense that's the one that's going to make the most impact. I mean, if Yotanwa loses this, then that's going to cut the Shin forces by about like a third or even half, and it'll be catastrophic for them. But of course, the narration from before had noted that this assault by Shin would backfire terribly, and does this mean, with regards to Yotanwa's battlefield, it does seem likely, although Heki's already suffered the loss of half of the food anyway, but I mean, there's no reason to say it couldn't be with, Orhon, Morten, or even Orsen. I mean, Hara might throw a curveball, who's to say, but nonetheless, as a chapter, it was just great. So much talk about. It just felt there was so much packed in, but it didn't feel overloaded either. It felt just right, really. Next chapter should be coming pretty soon. That's the one advantage of me having taken so long to put this out there, but I'm just looking so forward to next week's chapter. Can't wait to see what happens. Give me your thoughts. Comment down below. This is Solaris 290, signing out.